You know that moment when a recruiter asks, "So how's your job search going?" And you think, seems like a harmless question. It's not. And there's one thing you should never share with recruiters. Everyone always thinks it's their salary, but it's actually something else. And today I'm going to tell you exactly what it is, why it matters, and how to protect yourself without sounding rude or burning bridges. Look, for almost 10 years, I worked as a full desk agency recruiter. That means I was the person finding job leads, speaking to candidates, and working directly with hiring managers to fill roles. So I've seen it from all sides of the game. And I'm about to share what really goes on behind the scenes when a recruiter asks what else you've got going on in your search. So look, when I worked as a recruiter, it didn't matter whether a candidate had applied to a job or I'd reached out to them to initiate the conversation. 99% of my calls opened like this. "Hey, thanks for jumping on. Now I know I reached out to you and can run you through what's on my desk, but I'd be keen to hear a bit more about what's going on with you on the work front right now." Or if they'd applied to a job or reached out to me in any way, it might be, "Hey, thanks for your interest in this one. How's the search been going? And what's going on with you on the work front right now?" All very relaxed, all pretty harmless, and then I would just shut my mouth. I wouldn't say anything, and people would just completely open up. They'd share everything. I mean, full breakdowns of their current job, what they've been working on, what's gone well, what's gone wrong. Sometimes it felt like a career confessional booth. They'd tell me how their managers had been micromanaging them for months, or how they'd been overlooked for a promotion, how the culture had changed since new leadership came in. One guy even told me about a screaming match in a meeting the week before. Not just what was said, but who was in the room, who took sides, and how it made him realise he was done. Another person shared that she was working on a product launch that had just fallen flat, and she was taking the blame, despite being the one who saw the red flags. And look, I get it. When you're in the middle of a frustrating job situation and someone on the other end of the phone finally asks, "So what's been going on?" it's really tempting to unload, especially when that person seems friendly, calm, and interested. And let's be honest, sometimes recruiters are the first people who make you feel like your experience is valid, like someone's actually listening. And look, I was, and there are plenty of top-notch recruiters out there who genuinely care. We're all people at the end of the day. But that friendly recruiter, they're still wearing their sales hat. They're listening, but they've still got a job to do, a vacancy to fill, and clients who might only be paying them if they are successful. So look, despite the open question, you shouldn't just launch into a complete breakdown. I mean, some people would even share their frustrations with recruiters, which if you're talking to a recruiter, it's probably not your strongest play. Like, "I've been ghosted so many times. Last guy just threw me into an interview and I had no idea who I was meeting." I don't even think recruiters read resumes anymore. And I'd just be sitting there like, tell me more. Honestly, if I were still building a recruitment business today, I know I could probably map out an entire new market within a few weeks. People would just tell me everything I needed to know. Who the top players were, what companies to avoid, the market rates on offer, the best bosses to work for, the worst bosses to work for, and most importantly, I'd know which companies were in immediate need of job applicants with the exact skill sets to the people that I spoke to. Because with the right tone, the right prompts, people overshare, and it's not because they're naive or careless, it's human. We all want to be seen. We all want someone to help us get unstuck. But here's the problem. The more you give away, the more power you hand over. And that's what we're going to fix today. Because that one question, it was a gold mine. Because if I just added a little curiosity, just a little friendly probing, people would start to open up. They tell me what interviews they had lined up, which companies companies, the name of hiring managers, how the interviews were going, what kind of offer they were expecting. Now, if you've never worked in recruitment, you might be thinking, okay, but what's the big deal? Well, here's the big deal. You've just handed over a red hot sales lead, one I could take, run with, and potentially turn into revenue for me, not necessarily for you. Now, let me give you a real life example. Now, let's say you're interviewing at a mid-sized tech company. You casually tell your recruiter that you've just had a second round there, and the hiring manager, Tom, is great, very product focused, sharp guy, you really connected. You also mention they're still interviewing other applicants. What happens next? Your recruiter hangs up, updates their notes, and dials that company. They pitch another candidate, maybe someone stronger on paper, maybe not, but they frame them as a better fit, more experienced, more polished, ready to go. Suddenly, Tom's got a choice to make. He's no longer just considering you. Now he's reviewing someone else too. The competition you didn't even know you had. Your recruiter just created it. And yes, this might seem unethical, but I'll hold my hands up. I used to do this. I trained other recruiters to do it too. In fact, most agencies will train their consultants to do it because that's how agency recruiters build business. The more companies they know are hiring, the more chances they have to make placements. Now, I want to pause and say something important here. I'm not saying recruiters are evil, far from it. Many are genuinely helpful and do want you to succeed, but they don't work for you. They work for the client, and their job is to fill roles fast. So they're trained to ask questions that reveal opportunities. It's sales. That's the game. So if you want to play smart, you have to learn to protect your intel. So what do you say when a recruiter asks, who else are you interviewing with? What stage are you at? Who's the hiring manager? Here are 3 ways to respond without sounding awkward or paranoid. So option 1, keep it vague but casual. So try something like this. Yeah, I've got a few things progressing. I'm keeping my options open while focusing on the right fit. Short, casual, nothing specific. Option 2, set a clear boundary with empathy. Say, you'll probably hate this, but I've been asked to keep their identity private as it's a confidential search. But don't worry, I'd never want to share my interview activity set up by yourself if the tables were turned. Now, this one works really well. You sound reasonable, but you've also drawn the line that says, hey, I know your game. I'm not going to get involved, but don't worry because I'm not going to give away your client details to any of the other agencies that I'm talking to. At this point, most recruiters will back off. But if they don't, then there is option 3, use reverse psychology. Now, this tactic is best used if they push and say something like, we just want to make sure we're not duplicating efforts. It's at this point you can say, totally understand if knowing the company is a must, I totally respect you. Would you rather hold off on this one? That flips the power dynamic because now you sound like the one with options, like someone who's in demand. And let me tell you that with or without you energy, recruiters love it. It makes you look confident, in control, like someone worth fighting for. So here's the bottom line. Recruiters can absolutely help you land great roles. Many do, but they're not your coach. They're not your therapist, and they're not your strategy partner. They're a middle person with a sales target, which means you need to stay smart, protect your intel, and keep your cards close. And remember, you don't owe anyone your full job search breakdown. You can be polite, professional, even warm, while still being unshakable in how you manage your search. So remember, if there is one thing you should never share with recruiters, it's not your frustration with recruiters, although as mentioned, that doesn't help. And it's not your salary expectations, because actually this is very useful for agency recruiters to know. It's your detailed interview activity. Now, if this helped, hit like, subscribe, and share with someone currently job searching. And let me know in the comments, have you ever overshared with a recruiter and then later regretted it? I'll see you in the next one.